What's up, everybody? It's your man, the Cowboy J.R. Storm, and I am joined in the booth again by my buddy J.K. Candell for another episode of the J-Rock Show. How are we doing, J.K.?
I'm doing great, JR. You know that I'm a huge Big Ten guy. It's something that is really in my DNA, so I'm excited to talk about that conference today.
Yeah, for sure, definitely, and no better way to get started off than by talking about Indiana. So what are you seeing with the Hoosiers that you like so far?
I'm very high on Mackenzie Mbako as an SWBA talent, and clearly Mike Woodson agrees with me because he's been the best player on the floor at every turn for the Hoosiers in practice so far. But I'm not really that bullish on Indiana's prospects outside of Mackenzie Mbako. Mbako is their clear-cut best player. I think he'll be a lottery pick in the upcoming SWBA draft. There's a good amount of experience on this team and a little bit of size.
Yep.
But the guard play has a lot of question marks.
Yeah.
Are they going to be good enough defensively? Are they going to be good enough from three-point land?
Yeah, for sure. And, when I look at Indiana as well, I think a lot of question marks for me, outside of Mackenzie Mbako. I mean, we know what he's going to bring to the court. And, the Hoosiers coming off a 24-11 finish last year and currently ranked 14 in the preseason top 25. So definitely going to be interesting to see if they can sort of rekindle their glory days a little bit here this upcoming season.
I really do like the pickup of Robert McGee. Was very good in SimWorld Cup last year. Didn't get a ton of minutes.
Very underrated. Very
underrated big man. 6'11" as a freshman. It sounds like Mike Woodson can give him minutes very quickly off the bat. Shai Winterton. There could be a potential center battle in Bloomington. But I'm excited about Keontae Dior. That's a good freshman right there. Him and Mackenzie Mbako are going to be a really strong duo.
Yeah, for sure, without a question. And next school we want to get talking about is Illinois. The Fighting Illini, come in off a 23-10 finish last season, ranked 18 in the top 25. Obviously headlined by D'Angelo Jordan and Zay Gore. What excites you about this Fighting Illini bunch?
I feel like I'm beating a dead horse a little bit, JR, but I have to mention D'Angelo Jordan. He might be the best freshman in all of SimWorld U. I know people love Kevon Jackson. I know people love Cooper Flagg. D'Angelo Jordan is on par with those guys. When he is an eventual SWBA superstar and an elite level prospect, don't be surprised. There's a lot of guard depth on this Illinois team. They have Zay Gore, they have Jamal Harper, they have Corey Harris, and they have Senso Ferdinand Harris, who was just confirmed as their starting point guard. So, what's Zay Gore's role going to be from day one? Because I don't really see how consistent it is with the level of guard talent they have on the squad.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Zay Gore definitely might be a 3 or 4 year player at Illinois as opposed to, a 2 and done with the, minimum 2-year rule in SimWorld U. But we also got to talk about Jamal Harper, really fighting for one of those open starting positions, and his ability to just jump out the gym has really put a lot of people on notice.
Absolutely. Jamal Harper, I think we can see him have a big role for this Illini team this upcoming season. But I really like Corey Harris. But who I really would like to talk about is Kyrie Holtzclaw. How much is he going to see the court in his freshman season? I think he could be another 3-4 year player in SimWorld U, just like his former Lakeshore teammate in Zay Gore.
Yeah, and I have always been high on Kyrie Holtzclaw from his time with Lakeshore. There were plenty of times this past, prep season where even amongst Lakeshore Drive's struggles, he was still a consistent, steady defensive presence. And there were times, he would just take over a game defensively. And like you said, there's a lot of talent at the guard spot, but at forward, there is a lot of depth, I think, as well. With Gaber George, Towns Romanowski, I think should play a very big role on this team. Levin Williams and Jamal Harper, of course. So, yeah, I kind of question whether Holtzclaw might see immediate playing time as well.
We're in Indiana right now, or Illinois right now, I should say. We're moving a little bit west with this team. We're going to the Iowa Hawkeyes right now. Coach Fran McCaffrey, big season potentially for the Hawkeyes. Lamarian Sherwood is their only player above 6'8". He's 7 foot 260. He should go crazy in his senior season. But reports are indicating that he has not been super strong in practice for the Hawkeyes.
Yeah, that is definitely concerning, especially when he's your biggest presence. And going into, this upcoming SimWorld U season, I would think with the way Indiana is kind of situated that a lot of their offense would run through him, 7 foot 260, just dump the ball in the post and let him go to work and whatnot. But that is definitely very concerning that he hasn't really been using that strength to his advantage thus far in practice.
What stands out about Sherwood, though, is that he's such a 3-level player. He's a high-level rebounder, is a very good playmaker for his size, and he can stretch the floor well. So if he can kind of gain that assertiveness that he needs down low, don't be surprised to see him be a potentially Player of the Year candidate for Iowa. But another player that I think we have to talk about is Stacey Van Arsdale, the junior, the Pittsburgh, New York native, is probably the second option on this team. Him and Devontae Felice are probably the two biggest supporting options alongside Sherwood on this squad, and both are going to need to take significant strides in the right direction for Iowa to potentially crack hoops area.
Yeah, definitely. You've got two of the more vital upperclassmen on that team right there that you just mentioned in Van Arsdale and Felice. And if Iowa is going to have a good season and, make a push in the Big Ten and for a Big Ten championship, you're going to need more guys to step up, without question, or else you will not survive.
The Big Ten is so strong this year, JR, but I think it's time to talk about the reigning Big Ten tournament champions, the Maryland Terrapins. Cooper Kinney-Cross, he's back for his junior season, the Annapolis native. What are your expectations for Maryland in terms of reigniting their prior successes?
I think Maryland has an outside shot of, making a deep run, in the postseason. They did so last season. They had a nice run. Cooper Kinney-Cross was absolutely electrifying and was the guy for them, unquestionably, pretty much from conference tournament on through the rest of the postseason. And then you also bring AC Day back. You're bringing in VJ George as your lone freshman. Deegan Zane, Jarrell Tadlock. They've got a lot of depth at guard, I believe.
Absolutely. I think Kinney-Cross is the best guard in all of SimWorld U. But on the topic of the surrounding pieces on the squad, I like Keith Anthony, I like AC Day, and I really, really like Deegan Zane. This team has a lot of size. Their shortest player is 6'2". This Maryland team, I would not be surprised at all if they win this conference yet again. I think they, if not the best team in the Big Ten, they are certainly in the top 2 or 3.
Yeah, without question, I would definitely agree with you on that. And moving on to our next school, we've got the Michigan Wolverines, led by
SimWorld U football national champions now. Can they take those successes onto the hardwood?
Well, under new first-year head coach Dusty May, he's bringing in Samuel Bogus, Zane Marquis, Stuart Chamberlain, and I think one of the more underrated incoming freshmen in all of SimWorld U, Carlos Buffini. Didn't get a lot of run or wasn't really a top option during his time for SimWorld Europe, having to play behind Ivanov and Suslov. but he is a very versatile guard slash combo forward, combo guard slash, wing player who can really score in just about every way possible. And obviously, the elephant in the room with Michigan, we got to talk about Lorenzo Phenom. Absolutely dominant last season. He's only going to get better, and now you're bringing in a guy who he had such a great rapport with during their time for Bad Boys basketball in Big Shot Bog.
Well said. I love the hiring of Dusty May. He was great during his tenure at FAU. I think he's going to replicate his successes in the Big Ten. I love Lorenzo Phenom, only a sophomore, really lives up to the last name being Phenom. And him and Big Shot Bog, I think, are the best 1-2 punch in this entire conference. But on that note, I think Michigan is they had one of the best records in the regular season a season ago in the Big Ten. I would not be surprised to see them make a Final Four run, a deep hoop stereo run. But the next team we're going to talk about the second half of the battle for the Bunyan rivalry. We're going to talk about the Michigan State Spartans, the team that I represented during my playing days. Michigan State has Jai Edge and Malcolm Chamberlain coming to town, but Jadrian Elia, Owen Pride, and Caden Randolph are also key pieces of this Spartan squad. You think Tom Izzo can make his 10th Final Four during his tenure in East Lansing?
I'm not so sure. I would say I would put them in the Final Four conversation at this point. I like the duo of Malcolm Chamberlain and G Edge. Owen Pride. Underwhelming for Bad Boys basketball this past season, but he definitely brings a lot of size and an imposing presence for you to provide depth. Down low, and they have a little bit. Michigan State is also a team who's they have size, but they don't. You have a couple players in G Edge and Jadrian Elia, both 6 foot. You have a couple 6'2" and 6'3", and then you jump up all the way to 6'6", 6'7", and then 6'11". So that's definitely something I see interesting about the squad that Tom Izzo has put together. But
if there's one thing that I've learned about Michigan State basketball, it is that you do not bet on Tom Izzo, especially during the late runs of a season. I think that this Michigan State team is as good as is about just as underrated as I've seen other Michigan State Final Four teams be. I think Michigan State is probably the most slept on team in this conference, and this is not my biases talking. G Edge was phenomenal for the G League Ignite. He's a little bit of an older prospect. And Malcolm Chamberlain was incredible for Bad Boys basketball. I think with those two, Jadrian Elia, Owen Pride, I think MSU is going to have yet another formidable squad in this conference.
Yeah, definitely. I think they could make the postseason tournament, but not just quite ready to say Final Four yet. But like you said, there are a few coaches, in SimWorld U who you should bet against, and one of the guys at the top of the list is Tom Izzo. But moving on to Minnesota.
Gophers.
What do you like about Minnesota?
I actually want to start with what I don't like about Minnesota.
Okay.
Because something really jumps off the page for me with this team. Their tallest player is 6'9". They have 2 players that are 6'9", 2 players that are 6'8". And I don't really see phenomenal size for this squad. They have good size with nobody being overly short, but in the front court, I think this size is a concern. You got to face a 7-footer like Omarion Sherwood. How are you going to defend that? You even face 6'11" Malcolm Chamberlain.
Lorenzo Phenom as well.
Exactly. Lorenzo Phenom is 6'10".
Yeah, that's why I think Minnesota is more so near the bottom of the conference for me this upcoming season, because I think their lack of size, will, I think, definitely be a troubling factor for them throughout the season, like you said.
Minnesota won 5 games a season ago. Now they have Donald Ifedi, great player. I think that win total will go up from a season ago, but I still expect them to be at or near the bottom of this conference.
Yeah, without question, I see them, kind of being in that boat. And moving on to our next school, we've got the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Yet another first-year head coach in this Big Ten, Jake Diebler, taking over the reins for the Buckeyes. He got busy on the recruiting trail. He brought in Cody Johnson from the G League Ignite. They brought in Bo Pagnotti. They've got Brian Well. That's a really strong guard duo for the Buckeyes. In Diebler's first season, I think the tides are turning favorably for the Buckeyes. They won 19 games a season ago. I expect that number to be at least 22-23 this upcoming season.
Yeah, I definitely see Ohio State at the top of the Big Ten Conference by the end of the season. And I also think Bo Pagnotti could very well end up being one of the best guards in all of SimWorld U. And one of the more underrated duos, like you said, that you'll have in Pagnotti and Brian Webb. Then you had Torrin Trigg, Cody Johnson, Marlo Fultz. I think this is a very dangerous team in a lot of areas.
I think the scariest thing about this team is their experience. The only freshman on the roster is Bo Pagnotti. And he's also the smallest player on the roster.
Exactly. You know, they have size, they have experience, and that definitely will make them formidable down the stretch.
I think we have to mention something about Bo Pagnotti for Bad Boys a season ago. Bo Pagnotti can shoot the lights out.
Yes, he can. Yes, he
can. He made 36 threes, didn't do it particularly efficiently. But I expect that number to go up at the SimWorld U level. He kind of only shot 30%, but that's at least semi-encouraging given the fact that he made 36 of them.
Yeah, definitely. And moving on to our next school, this is an interesting one for me. It's Penn State, the Nittany Lions.
They have a second-year head coach in town for Penn State. Penn State's got Mike Rhodes in town for year 2. I really like the pickup of Nick Beal. I think Nick Beal will be a big piece of the puzzle for the Nittany Lions on the offensive end of the floor. But I'm also really high on Steven Johnson Odom.
Yeah, Steven Johnson Odom, definitely a very talented presence for them. But we also got to mention Aimar Afua.
You took the words out of my mouth. 6'10" as a true freshman, already the tallest player on this roster. A good deal of size for Penn State. 4 players at sitting at 6'9", and then Afua at 6'10". This team has got size, and they will bully you down low. That's another team that I think Minnesota will struggle with. I don't think they're particularly elite or contenders in any facet. They won 21 games a season ago. I think they're going to regress this year. I don't think they're as good as they were.
Right, and Nick Beal, kind of going back to Nick Beal, I definitely think that he is the type of guard you build around, for the future of your program.
I would agree with that. I think he could be a 4-year cornerstone for Penn State, very similar to a player like Jalen Pickett, who's now in the SWBA.
Yeah, definitely.
Moving on now, we have a team that has done their fair share of damage in this conference over the recent seasons. We got Matt Painter and the Purdue Boilermakers, the Spoilermakers. 18-16 a year ago, down year, brought in Pierre DuPont and Myjair Williams. Will the freshman duo help the squad in West Lafayette eclipse 20 wins this season?
I'm not so sure yet. I'd say 20, but I think the 18 to 20 range is definitely very plausible. I love what Matt Painter brought in, like you said, in Pierre DuPont and Myjair Williams. Myjair Williams, one of the bigger guards in SimWorld U at 6'5". Pierre DuPont, can do it all at 6'8" at the forward spot. Ian Krimmer, 7-foot junior. There's
who we didn't talk about? Darius Player. He's going to be a key player for this Purdue squad.
Yeah, and this Purdue squad also has a nice mix of both youth and experience.
And those are the most dangerous teams, especially when it comes to the Hoopsterias and once we get to March, because they're the teams where you see growth in their freshmen, and they also have guys that can handle the big stage. They have Keandre Curtis, who's a senior. They have Krimmer, who's a junior. They have Darius Player, who's a junior, and then that strong freshman duo.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited to see what Purdue will do in the Big Ten. I think they could make a push to be near the top. I think they could surprise a lot of people.
I think if they win this conference, I won't be surprised. I think they are one of the, if not the most underrated team in all of SimWorld U. We know Matt Painter loves his 7-footers. Shout out Zach Eady. Ian Krimmer could be in for a big season as a junior.
Yeah, we all know Matt Painter loves his big guys. And next school I want to talk about, one of the more exciting schools coming into all of the SimWorld U season. We've got Rutgers, the Scarlet Knights, obviously headline, bringing in one of the top players in the country in Dylan Harper. And they also really focused on the defensive end in their recruiting class as well.
I love what Rutgers did. I think Dylan Harper is going to be firmly in the mix for Freshman of the Year in SimWorld U. He was great during his short time in SimWorld Prep. We know what he's capable of. But Jermaine Owens, absolutely incredible down low for Philadelphia Elite during his SimWorld Prep career, 6'11", 242. Will step in and start day one for Rutgers.
Yeah, I definitely see Jermaine Owens. I'll say I see Jermaine Owens starting day one. Biggest player on their roster. And
by a wide margin, too.
Yes, exactly. And the last two seasons, for Philadelphia Elite and Coach Drees, he just dominated down low defensively, like you said. And especially, later in the season and in their time in the run to one, you just saw more of that, takeover defensive ability come out of him.
And I think the Orland Mock pickup, his Jermaine Owens Philadelphia Elite teammate, is another good one. Orland Mock should be a 4-year player for Steve Pickell and the Scarlet Knights. But I think Mock could end up being a decent rotational piece for his first season or two in SimWorld U before kind of getting the reins once Dylan Harper heads off to the SWBA.
Without question. And another player that I'm high on with Rutgers that we have yet to mention, Kamarian Goodyear.
I was going to say Demarion Mitchell, but I like Kamarian Goodyear. Kamarian Goodyear is a knockdown shooter. Him and Harper is going to be a scary backcourt. Probably the best in all of in the entire Big Ten.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you there personally. I think Goodyear and Harper slot in as your two starting guards without question in my mind. Cootie Zoe, I think, like Orland Mock, will be more of a 3-4 year kind of rotational piece, start down the line. Rutgers, I think, definitely one of the few teams that went out and got every single need they hit on.
And that's so crucial in such a competitive conference. And as SimWorld U as a whole continues to get more competitive. But on that note, we're going to talk about a team that is no stranger to competition. The Wisconsin Badgers picked up two very interesting recruits from SimWorld Prep in Tamier Johnson and Daquan McDougal. Another team that has a lot of experience, but a little bit of and a couple exciting freshmen too. I didn't even mention Donovan Bird Culver, a very strong 3-player class for Greg Gard. Wisconsin has not made the quad since 2015. Will this be their first since?
I think they have an outside shot, of making it to the postseason tournament. Donovan Bird Culver, very, unique situation for the North. I never really felt like personally he ever got enough run to show what he could truly do. But a 6'4" forward, he can shoot from deep, he can attack the rim, he can defend, he can do it all. And I think Wisconsin is the perfect place for him to sort of take his talents and immerse himself, fight to be a top guy offensively.
Well said. I think that this Wisconsin team very well can surprise people. Guard is one of the most underrated coaches in all of SimWorld U. I love the Daquan McDougal pickup. This is very good for the Rocky Mountain Monsters. I think Tamir Johnson could be a bit of a scary pickup, and I like Bird Culver as well. But I think if we're talking Badgers, we have to talk about the experience here. Deontay Stoker, Kipton Pardo, Richmond Manchester, Jace Mason. This is a squad that has a lot of guys that are no stranger to the big moment, and I think that Wisconsin, while they may not be a top 3, top 5 team in this conference, I think that they can return to Hoopsteria. I think that they can give every team a good fight and kind of show that they're a force to be reckoned with. They won 9 games a season ago. If they win around 15, 16 games, that's a successful season in Madison.
Yeah, I would definitely say so and agree with you. And one player I forgot to mention, Tamir Johnson, a guy who I think definitely blossomed more towards the end of the season, this past prep season for the Yacht Club. I definitely see him, fighting for crucial minutes right away, and I think he could be, a long-term player to sort of build around as well.
I think before we close this episode off, I think we should make our predictions, JR, on who we think will win this star-studded conference. Want to kick things off?
Sure, I'll kick it off. And, Big Ten, such a tough conference. At first, I was kind of leaning Rutgers. I think they could very well be in the mix for it. And this might surprise some people with them being under, a first-year head coach. But I'm going to go with Michigan.
Interesting.
Lorenzo Phenom, dominant last season. Now you're bringing in someone in Samuel Bogus, who he's very familiar with, as we said already on the show, from their time on Bad Boys Basketball. Carlos Buffini, I think, will be another great backcourt/wing piece for them, who will blossom, as the season goes along. Zane Marquis, Coleman Rue. This team has a lot of depth, which is so crazy to me. And I think they'll be raising a Big Ten championship banner in Ann Arbor.
This conference is so strong. There are 6 teams in the inaugural SP rankings, but I think there's 2 that I really want to talk about. Maryland, Cooper King Cross. Can't really. I think I'll leave it at that. Can't really bet against probably the best guard in all of SimWorld U. But I also want to talk about Ohio State, the Buckeyes. Jake Diebler, year 1. You have Cody Johnson now. You have Bo Pagnotti, and you have one of the most experienced rosters in all of SimWorld U. You have a lot of size. You have a lot of shooting. You have guys that really check off every single box on this Buckeyes team. And when it comes to Hoopsteria or come March, they have guys that can handle the big moments.
Yeah, and I am definitely ready for the game when they take on the Wolverines in conference play. I think that is going to be a really fun and intense game to watch, and especially seeing Cody Johnson and Lorenzo Phenom, go head to head.
Absolutely. I think Ohio State is a bold pick to win the Big Ten, but I think that it is absolutely in their realm of possibilities. So I'm gonna be a believer in the Buckeyes.
Yeah, definitely. Going to be a very exciting season in the Big Ten, and that's going to do it for the show today, everyone. Be sure to tune in next week. We'll be talking the Big 12 conference. Comment down in the threads below your thoughts, what you think, what you're excited for about the Big Ten this upcoming season. And JK, thanks again for being my partner in crime.
Absolutely. Can't think of a better partner in crime for this show.
For sure, man, for sure. All right, everyone, this has been the J-Rock Show. Thank you all for tuning in, and as always, see the game, be the game.